you also mentioned that declassification of classified information, that something happened 30 years ago. CIA did a certain coup somewhere, it was involved in Iran. And when 40 years after that, two questions arise in my mind. Why would a certain government who was involved in that, who warns that people should not know how it operates, it declassifies that information for people to interpret it in this context when they're already doing it now? And second, even after that much amount of information, of course, in a way, I mean, I want this conversation to be put out to the consumers, that even after, when this information, when you write this manual, when you write, based on declassified information, people just don't care.
Right. Okay. So you've come to the heart of a lot of things that bother and interest me. So let me take them sequentially. The first point is that a country like the United States is contradictory. It is founded on certain ideals of democracy and so on, and these have their contradictions. So there are always going to be people who emerge into elected office who believe very much in the ideals of a country, or they believe very much in their religious convictions and so on. Frank Church, for instance, was one of these people. Frank Church was appalled by what he was hearing that the CIA was doing. So he began, as a senator, he began to hold hearings, the church hearings. And then eventually the church committee that he impaneled published an enormous report on the CIA crimes, which any scholar of American power reads. It's available. Daniel Ellsberg worked for the U.S. Pentagon as a contractor. He was photocopying, or reading actually first, this large document about how the United States understood the war in Vietnam and how they were lying to the public. And he decided to leak that document to the press. That becomes the Watergate or the Ellsberg files, the Vietnam papers. It leads to the fall of the Nixon government. I mean, there are contradictions. There are laws in the United States because people are actually true believers in the ideals. And that's very useful, and it's a good thing. And in fact, we should fight in all countries for greater transparency of government. I mean, government is for the people. Why don't they release documents? The Indian government has this policy in place, laws in place, but it just doesn't bother to release documents. I would like to see Indian government documents. I would like to have a Freedom of Information Act in India that actually worked, where you could actually get documents. A right to information was passed just, whatever it is, 10, 15 years ago. It took a long fight to get the right to information in India. So this is very important. True believers in transparency have fought for this. Secondly, it's very beneficial to intelligence operatives and so on to have some of these things released, because it shows what they are capable of doing. It's almost an advertisement. It warns people like, hey, listen, we did this to Arbenz. We made sure that when he went into exile, he was stripped naked in the airport in a strip search. And people watched him stand naked, the president of the country. We'll do this to you. We organized the death of Muammar Gaddafi. We had him stripped naked and sodomized before he was killed. And that was videotaped and put out there on YouTube. We did that. We can do that to you. That for them is a kind of machistic warning to the world that, we do it. So you get both the liberal side, the actual transparency people, but you get, the worst side, the machistic warmongers saying, look at what we can do. It's an advertisement. We've made it for you. So that's the second thing. The third thing, which is, I think, important, is the more you write about these things, the more confusion it can also end up creating. Because one side of it is you actually do the work of the CIA. I've been criticized by people saying, you interview ex-CIA agents, they tell you stories, you write them up. Is that a pipeline? Well, I don't think so. I've had ex-CIA people tell me horrible things that the United States has done. And they've told me this on the record. And I think it's important to write it up because they also feel like they want to enter the history books. They spent their life in the shadows. But it's a debate, should you write this? Should you not write this? I'm a believer in transparency. I think that you should expose power for its crimes. You shouldn't pretend that oh, then I'm becoming a billboard for it. I think you should expose it for its crimes. The crimes that the United States committed in Iraq are already getting forgotten, and amnesia is a very important part of the reproduction of power. Amnesia is very important. It's very important for people to be told that Iran is a problem because of Iran. To forget the prehistory of the Iranian Revolution. Why did it happen? What was the Shah? It's incredible that the Shah's son is now trying to make a bid to return to power. I mean, that is incredible to me. It means that the world has forgotten what Savak was, what the Shah was. The Shah of Iran, they were Cossacks who were placed there by imperialism. And that doesn't even legitimize somebody not placed by imperialism. We should be beyond kings. We don't need kings in the world. What the Iranian Revolution did was to say, we want to be a republic. I think that's what I focus on. Whether it's an Islamic republic or not an Islamic republic is not the question. The Saudis hate Iran because it's an Islamic republic that's close to their borders. It's the only Islamic republic close to their borders. Indonesia, India, Pakistan, these places where the majority of the world's Muslims live are far away. But Iran is close, and it's a very bad example. They've tolerated majority Muslim countries that are republics. They in fact made a deal with Saddam Hussein to go and destroy the Iranian Revolution. Saddam was paid by the Gulf Arabs from 1980 to 1988 to conduct a really heartless war against the Iranian people, where they used chemical weapons supplied by the Federal Republic of Germany, supplied by the United States government, and so on, against the Iranians. I mean, they never allowed the Iranian Revolution to basically come together. People say, well, look, the Islamic Republic is so horrible, this, that, and the other. Well, but consider that its early years were in war. So if it's a paranoid republic, it's paranoid because you made them go immediately into war, and sustained total war makes a state paranoid. That's exactly what happens. If you wanted another outcome, you would have welcomed the end of a monarchy, and you'd have said, now let's see what these people can do for their people. Are they committed to improving the dignity of their people and so on? But when you go to war against them, whether it's a direct war like the Iran-Iraq war, or a sanctions war, a hybrid war against Venezuela, or the blockade against Cuba, you are going to distort the internal life of the people because they are living in a permanent state of siege. Of course, there are going to be distortions. So, you asked a question about knowledge about these things. Well, but there's also amnesia. We are taught to forget. We are taught to forget the war on Iran from 1980 to 1988. It's almost as if the demonization of Ayatollah Khomeini, for instance, that happens right away, provided a way to have amnesia about the role of the United States in Iran. You can wash everything clean. In fact, same with Afghanistan. The entry of Osama bin Laden into Afghanistan from when he was thrown out of Sudan and comes to Afghanistan suddenly cleansed the story of imperialism in Afghanistan. And then it just becomes about Osama bin Laden, the Taliban, and then eventually when 9/11 happens, it's just Osama bin Laden / Taliban have to be removed. I mean, everything before that is forgotten, and it's amnesia. So the role of amnesia alongside the release of materials is extraordinary. I mean, Washington bullets appeared in, I don't know, 25 languages and so on. It is a life of its own, but it's still a marginal text. It's not capable of breaking through in a society, breaking through the amnesia. I mean, how many people go to the CIA and read their documents that are available? No, not very many people. It's not commonly looked at, that material. It's amnesia alongside the release of material, and amnesia wins.